So today I am so excited to have Shakti Navran with me. I'm going to be interviewing Shakti about her really unique work with crystals, and I'm really excited to share that with all of you who are watching. So Shakti, can you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself and your work with gemstones?
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me. This is really exciting. And I always love to talk about gemstones and their healing properties and how we can actually use them to truly heal and support and balance ourselves. As you will know, that I'm an astrologer, and I used to be a jeweler for 33 years of my life. So I started out with the interest into symbols and healing gemstones because I was a jeweler and I wanted to make jewelry which was doing more than just being a beautiful piece. So I wanted to really use the gemstones for a person which would be the most supportive gemstones. So then, as an astrologer, it was very close to me to try to combine the astrology where you read the blueprint for a person and what the potentials are and what the challenges are. And then you can find the according gemstones and really support area of frictions. Or you can say, okay, this is my intention for this lifetime. This is my spiritual goal, which is symbolized in astrology by the north node of the moon. So you could kind of meditate or wear a piece of jewelry with exactly the stone which would help you to reach and further, getting further along the road to reach that goal.
So most healers are familiar with the idea of choosing some gemstones to help their clients work through different life issues, but your unique perspective as a jeweler is really, and an astrologer, is what kind of made you combine all of those things into, was it your intent then to design jewelry that would be influenced by astrological energy and the gemstones?
Yeah, that's what I was doing primarily when I was still living in Germany over 20 years ago. And I was actually quite famous. I had people coming from all over Germany to get an astrology reading with me. And then I would give them exactly which were their best healing supportive gemstones. And they would understand which part in their life it would support. And then I would create a beautiful piece of jewelry for them. Mm. So nowadays I don't make jewelry anymore, but I still help people to find their most healing gemstones. So my emphasis is more into the astrology to understand who you are, to really help people to thrive in their life. And then there, as I see it, there are two aspects how you can work with gemstones and why they do work. One is what you know very well, is that they have a specific frequency. So whenever you bring even a tiny little ruby into your energy field, it will do something. It will strengthen something, balance something. And if you know that you love rubies, you might have a selection of 50 stones in front of you, and there's only one ruby you really love. And that is because those rubies, each one is kind of has its own personality, and with that, its own frequency. So out of 50 rubies, maybe there's only one or two which are really the right one for you. So when I was still in Germany, I did a lot of research with gemstones and how to use them properly. So I did a lot of pre-selection through the chart, the birth chart. And then I would put out the stones I had, and then we would muscle test the ones which the person would like the best. So the one you feel attracted to, usually you are kind of, you have a frequency with that stone. So if you don't have the access to your chart and you don't understand about it, that's always a good way to select a stone, just how the stone talks to you. And when you bring a stone into your energy field, you could have somebody muscle test you and find out if this stone is strengthening or not. So this is a huge field of just working with the frequencies of the stones. And that's based on the crystal structure, the color, how much light they let through, or if they're opaque. So there are a lot of different aspects to that. But then the other aspect is that you can use a stone as an anchor. as an anchor for something you know about in your personality, in your nature, you want to support. You might know from neurolinguistic programming, NLP, hypnotherapy, that we can set anchors. And for example, let's say you have a job interview coming up and you want to be really concentrated and focused and feel good about yourself. So you want to be strong in an interview, right? So you build up to that state beforehand and you anchor it somewhere. Let's say you anchor it in your upper arm. Mm-hmm. So then you go into your interview, and before you start, you kind of touch yourself on the upper arm, what means you fire that anchor, and suddenly you sit straight, you have that optimism, that energy flowing. So that's what we mean by using an anchor. It kind of fires a certain state of consciousness or a certain emotional state. So the same we can do with gemstones. We can program a stone with a certain intention or a certain goal we're having. And just by playing around with the gemstone in your hand during the interview or any other situation you want to support yourself in, it will help you to be in your strongest expression, because the stone becomes an anchor and fires that intention you have programmed into it. So I have actually done quite some videos about how you can, first of all, clean a gemstone, and then how you can make it into an anchor, how you program a gemstone. So in reality, both lines, the frequency of the stone and what you want the stone to do, will always play a big role in your life. So I'm a Taurus. I'm very practical. So I just love to use all what gemstones have to offer.
That's beautiful. So in your work as an astrologer then, and from my understanding, you create personal gem reports to help people identify with which stones will enhance their strengths and serve as those anchors for them in their lifetime. How do you select which stones would be right for a person based on the astrology chart? Did you have like a set list of your go-to stones that you always use for the planet Jupiter, or do you have stones that you always connect with a Sagittarius, or does it really vary depending on the overall chart for the person?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's exactly it. That you want to, let's say your sun is in Taurus, as an example, but then not every Taurus is the same. So it really depends how the Taurus sun is connected with other planets in your chart and in which house it is. So that gives us much more information what kind of Taurus you are, in which area of your life you need that grounding and that beauty and comfort and taking that deep breath Taurus needs to learn about. So the birthstones, as they're given to us by the Jewelers Guild, they're not astrologically based, not at all. I don't know how they came up with it, but I agree with some of them, but most of them are really, you can forget about it. So how you want to select which stone is the best for the Taurus sun is you need to know in which house it is. And each stone has what we call a signature. So for example, the diamond. The diamond is one of the most beloved stones, and there's actually a reason for that. So it's not just because we have agreed upon it, all that this is a nice stone. It really has to do with the frequency of the diamond. So if you know about the crystal structure of the diamond, it has this double pyramid. So it crystallizes in those two endings. So that gives us a Mars signature, this coming to that point. It's also the hardest stone, so it's a Saturn stone. And it's a stone which carries the highest light reflection. So that connects to supporting consciousness. And here, diamond is a stone many people use as a wedding ring. And the idea that it's a hardest stone, so it has this durable effect for supporting long-term relationship, which we go for when we marry. We make promises because we believe we get along for a long time. So in a chart, I would give the diamond for somebody who has a connection between Saturn, Sun, and Mars, and actually Venus. So we haven't discussed the Venus aspect. The Venus aspect comes from the double pyramid. You can almost mirror it up. If you just look at the pyramid and mirror it up, it has this Venus effect because Venus rules Libra. So Libra is a scale, it's a balance. So this would be a stone which is very beneficial for you if you have Sun-Saturn square, for example, or Sun-Saturn conjunction. So you want to find a stone which covers as much of the qualities you want to support. And the underlying idea is that when we use gemstones, they are the most perfect crystallized representation of that archetypal idea or signature, and they're perfectly balanced. So they can help us when we bring them into our energy field to balance, because they're already bringing in those high frequencies into the material realm. So that's why it's really a wonderful way to enjoy stones and play with them, lay them on your body for meditation, wear them in jewelry. I mean, there's so many ways we can use the perfection and the perfect vibration those gemstones hold.
So you're really making this connection based on the entire chart and then that correspondence with the energetic qualities of a particular stone. It's not just one piece of information that you're pulling. You're looking at the big picture.
So it's really the signature and the crystal structure, the chemical composition, the light aspect. So, for example, if we know that a stone has iron in its chemical composition, we automatically know it's a Mars stone. But then we want to have more information, which of the Mars stones is really the right one for you. So if you start to work that way with gemstones, it's really very satisfying. It's a lot of fun because you're so much more aware why you're using a stone.
Yes, absolutely. And what have your years of experience with crystals and gemstones helped you learn about yourself or about other people? What are some of the larger lessons that you've taken away from that work?
Well, I have been working with gemstones, I would say, since I was 21, and I'm 58 now, so many, many years. And in Germany, I actually did a lot of seminars called Meditation and Healing with Gemstones and Crystals. So I not only have my own research and my own experiences with gemstones, which brought me to that whole world, but I have also had access to a lot of people and their experiences with gemstones. So in my experience, when you open yourself up, your heart, so to speak, for the beauty, then the gemstones can really become the focal point for something you want to support in your life. And I think this is really the main benefit to use them that way.
In all of your work with crystals, have you ever come across something that was challenging for you as far as your work? Did you ever find any stumbling blocks or things that you felt unsure of moving forward? And if you ever did encounter something like that was like a personal growth challenge, how did you overcome that?
Well, when I was younger, I did a lot of meditations with crystals. So because it's so comfortable, I'm a Taurus, I'm comfortable. So with a meditation with crystals, you lay down, you put certain stones onto your body, and it's just so much easier to relax into that non-mental space. And I had really, really deep experiences with those meditations. So that was most impactful for me at that time. Nowadays, I don't do the meditation so much. It's more like I always have a stone around me I play with, and I have favorites I go through. So right now, it's a Sugilite I'm working with a lot because I just love Sugilite. It helps in to bring in those intuitive psychic aspects and ground them in your consciousness. So it's more like I work with specific stones right now instead of the overall work and trying to have experience with different stones. And according to your questions, no, I never had a really challenging experience with gemstones. I couldn't recall any. I mean, what I do have experience when I used to do my seminars is that some people didn't feel strengthened with specific stones. Like, for example, you bring in this tiny little ruby into somebody's energy field and they might test weak. So then I would definitely say this is not a stone you should have in your energy field. But I haven't had actually really a negative effect out of that. It's more like, okay, the stone you want to wear in your jewelry or meditate with can do so much more. So make sure you really love the stone and test it. I mean, this is really, or would use a pendulum to really attune if this is the best frequency for you.
Yeah. How do you think you made the decision, or how did it happen that you started working with crystals and astrology instead of a more traditional career path, right? Because working with these energies is not so much the mainstream thing to do. I think it's more accepted now, and it's getting more widely accepted all the time. But what was it for you that made you realize that this was a calling that you had?
Yeah, well, astrologically, the answer would be I'm have my moon in Aquarius, so I'm kind of weird. I'm weird and have access to different dimensions. And for me personally, it was really a very profound experience with a rubellite crystal. So I had a meditation with it, and I was in a class where it was about healing with gemstones, and I thought, well, I was 21. I thought, oh, I'm going to check it out. I'm a jeweler. I want to know about if there's really something to it. So we were sitting in the circle and we picked different stones. So I picked this really beautiful rubellite pink tourmaline crystal. And I was bringing it into my energy field and putting it on my heart. And I had the most profound experience of like having this love flow through my whole system. It was like self-love and joy, and I was like, oh my God, I need this stone. So, and it caught me totally by surprise because I didn't have any ideas before. And I was like, okay, I'm going to check it out. And after that, it was totally clear. And then I started to do my own research and meditate with different stones. So you could say that I'm pretty psychic, so if I take a stone and sit with it and meditate with it, I can really feel the energies it carries. So that definitely helps to believe in gemstones if you can feel them.
What would you say to someone else who's at that sort of turning point where they think that, you know, they might have a calling to work with crystals in their professional life, but maybe they're afraid to make that transition into a more alternative career, or maybe they're afraid of what their family might think, or they're worried about how they might support themselves with a career like this? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, to make a career out of healing gemstones, that's definitely not easy. I think it's easier if you have skills in an area like a jeweler, or you already are a healer or a body worker, to integrate the healing aspect of gemstones with that is much easier than to just hang out your shingle and say, I'm a crystal healer. I mean, you have made a really wonderful project out of what you're doing. You have been at it for many years, so you probably know that it's not easy. And I would suggest, that if you feel the call to work with crystals, to really get a lot of experience with different stones and meditate with them and start to journal, write things down, so you can come to a place of objectivity and do some research online, maybe find a place where you can really hands-on experience with somebody who has a lot of experience like you.
Kind of like a job shadowing experience, or getting to know someone else who's been successful at it.
Yeah.
That's great advice. That's wonderful. Well, can you share with the viewers where they can find more information about you and the types of services that you offer?
Okay. So on one hand, I'm what we call an evolutionary astrologer. So I look at the birth chart and help people really to thrive with what they brought with them into this lifetime. So I look at everything in the chart from that karmic soul perspective. So, and then I help with the gemstones to anchor that and to really keep somebody on track and to help balance out the challenging areas. So I truly believe we're born to thrive. We're born to grow into higher levels of self-expression and consciousness. And I think it's really a wonderful way to connect that with gemstones. Mm-hmm. So I do astrology on one hand, and then I integrate the gemstones. And for people who just want the true birthstones for themselves, they can get what I call my gemstone profile report, where I give them one gemstone for each planet in their chart, including the ascendant and the south node of the moon and the north node of the moon. So you get actually a report with 14 gemstones. So I've written a book about it, Jewelry and Gems for Self-Discovery, where I explain how it works and how you can find your own access to choose the right stones. But a lot of people like to understand how it works, but then they want the report to have it easy. So it's just $20, and I think it's a wonderful way to really know which stones are the most impactful and wonderful stones for you.
And especially for someone who is already working with crystals in their day-to-day life, to have that information from an expert about some of the stones that can really help with their own self-transformation and personal growth. I think it's just a wonderful tool and a great service for you to offer to people who are looking for that in their lives. And like you said, making it nice and easy for people by getting all of that information condensed and ready for them.
And I also give them a write-up about the particular stone and the metaphysical aspects of it. So you would get the 14 gemstones, which are really your true healing birthstones. So let's say there is a ruby for the heart. Ruby is a stone of unconditional love, connects the root chakra with the heart chakra. So it's a really wonderful stone for supporting creative self-expression and getting those love energies going. But then again, if you visit a jeweler and he shows you 50 different rubies, there might be only one or two which are really the right frequency for you, depending on their specific chemical composition, which part of the world they're coming from, which mine. So all that will play a role. So the gemstone profile, I look at it as just a start to get you oriented. And then you really have to go out and look at stones and muscle test them. That's a really good way. Or if you can't do that, or you don't know how to use a pendulum, then go with the stone you like the best, the most beautiful stone, because that's kind of how our heart decides which is our stone. And I've had it happen again and again, especially when I still had my crystal store in Germany, that people would come in and look for a special stone, like an opal, and they had seen an opal like maybe 5 years ago in a gem store somewhere, and they never got it out of their head. But of course, 5 years later, that stone was gone. So my advice would be, whenever you fall in love with a stone, you should go for it right then, because this means you really have a connection with that stone. And I can promise you, you will never find the exact combination of frequencies again. So if you love a stone, you better get it.
Is there any final takeaway that you would like to share with everyone who's watching about your specific expertise combining the astrology with the gemstones? Is there any one last really important thing you'd like to leave everyone with?
Mm-hmm. I truly believe that our personal power is what we know about ourselves and our state of consciousness. And everybody lives their chart. There's no doubt about it. The question is just on what level. Is it more the low end level of possibilities, or do we smarten up? Do we get more mature? And do we find better ways to live all the potentials we carry? So what astrology does, and the way I'm using it, I'm really looking at what's your full potential and how can you get there the straightest way. So I give you a crash course with widening that perspective to look at yourself and connecting the dots of who you are and parts you know about yourself in a whole new way, like from the soul's wisdom perspective. And then it gets very practical how you can support yourself to get there. But consciousness is really the starting point. And then gemstones just help to work it in a very specific and empowering way.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you doing this interview today and sharing your unique perspective on crystals and gemstones with everyone who's been watching today.
Yeah, I love to talk about gemstones and astrology. As you can tell, very passionate about it.
And so just for everyone who is watching, below this video, you'll find a bio of Shakti and her work, along with a link to her website, and also link to some of her publications and different services that she's offering. So thank you again so much for joining us. And Shakti, many, many thanks and gratitude to you for spending some time with all of us today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, my dear. And as we say here on Maui, aloha.
Aloha.
So if you want to play and really know which are your main healing birthstones, then you want to get my gemstone profile report. Here's what you will get with your gemstone profile report, as I call it. It is about 20 pages long and gives you in-depth metaphysical information about one stone for each of your planets and nodes and Chiron in your chart. And it will give you wonderful, excellent foundation for your personal healing work with gemstones and your meditation, or you might already own certain gemstones I'm recommending, or certain pieces of jewelry you have. So this is not only a list which gives you a lot of information, but you will also see pictures and photos of the gemstones. And all this will cost you $19.99. So I suggest you head over right now if that's of any interest for you. When you're on that website, you will be invited to set up an account for yourself. So you will never lose this information. You can always go back into the system. And then it gets you to a page where you put in your birth information, because I don't know that. So you have to do that part of the work. And then when you have done that and you have paid, you will already have a link to the gemstone profile where you can download the information. So you will have immediate access to it. If you made it till this last page, I just want you to have my information if you're interested in my astrology and maybe get a personal reading. So my website address is mauiastrologyreading.com. And Ashley's website is loveandlighthealingschool.com. So on her website, you will find a lot of information and how you can do more in-depth training about how to use crystals in your personal life. So I hope you enjoyed the interview and our talk, and share my passion for gemstones and how to support yourself in your own life and balance areas in your birth chart. So till I see you then again, aloha.